A lot of you came up to me, asked me how I was doing because you found out I was in the hospital for about 5 days last week. I probably told you I was okay. Probably told you I was good. The fact is that's not true, unfortunately. I went to the ER, they found a tumor inside my kidney.
I've been a fan of wrestling for as long as I can remember. Of course, probably like 11, 12 years old is when I really started gravitating towards it. 16 is when I began training because I fell in love with both collegiate wrestling at the time and theater and pro wrestling, so it's like the perfect blend of all those worlds. I love wrestling because there's something really unique about the idea that two performers in a ring full of a bunch of strangers can tell a captivating story. I look at pro wrestling as an art form. It's a real version of good versus evil. And, outside of professional wrestling, it's not always the case that the good guy defeats the bad guy, unfortunately. But in our world of professional wrestling, more times than not, the good guy actually wins.
I first learned of Tim Donst during one of the joint Chikara AIW promotions, and I was very impressed by a young man that his whole gimmick was an amateur wrestler, because being a former amateur wrestler, you don't get to see a whole lot of that. At least back then, amateur wrestling really frowned upon pro wrestling. And once Tim Donst made his way into AIW full time, I really became more impressed with Tim Donst, the man.
So I met Tim Donst about 5 years ago, and you see a lot of guys come and go in professional wrestling. You see him come into the locker room, you see him leave, but there was always something different about Tim. I've said it before, and I really believe it. You can't teach passion, and Tim had it. He had a passion for the sport of professional wrestling.
My mom was really worried when they found out I was going to be a professional wrestler. Of course, she didn't want me to get it dropped on my head. My dad kind of pushed me towards it because he felt like going to a wrestling school 3 times a week at 16 will hopefully keep me out of trouble.
I've known Tim Donst since he first broke into the wrestling business. I met him back in Chikara, and I still have fond memories of him getting his shit kicked in by Eddie Kingston. It was really what broke him out and made him a standalone, a star on his own.
This is part of something that Pat is nice enough to put together about Donst, and I'm going to slip up and I'm going to say Mike a bunch of times because I've known Mike for 10 years. I started doing Chikara stuff in February of 2005, and he was one of the first people that I met. And I always made it a point to talk to everybody, be as nice as I possibly can, and hopefully some of that rubs off on other people. And Donst has been one of the nicest guys. Mike, one of my favorite travel partners. He actually lived across the bridge from me once.
I first met Tim Donst at Absolution 5. I didn't even realize how long I've actually known him. AIW and Chikara did a doubleheader for Absolution 5, and Tim was there. He wrestled Bryan Danielson on the Chikara half of the show. And the thing that stood out to me was Tim was the only guy that stayed from the Chikara show that wasn't booked, and he stayed and he watched the entire show. We talked a little bit, and after that we started corresponding, and AIW ran some touring concerts throughout that summer, and Tim was actually living in Ohio at the time, and he said, hey, I'll come out to these shows, and that's when I first started to get to know him, and we really hit it off, which it's very hard to do in pro wrestling. It's either you love people or you hate people, and Donst is a guy that I immediately got along with, and I think he's been on every single AIW show since.
Tim Donst I've met a handful of times, just going down to Chikara with Gargano. Never really got any further than just exchanging pleasantries, hello, goodbyes, good seeing you, the whole nine. We really didn't bond and connect until we started coming to AIW, and we started just talking and chatting. And we really didn't get that close bond until we wrestle each other. You really don't get that bond with somebody until you wrestle them. You can say hello, goodbye, but there's something about getting in the ring with somebody and just sharing that little bit of time with them. You just create that special bond that can never be broken.
As a ring announcer, you never really feel part of the show. There is a camaraderie, a brotherhood in professional wrestling, but because I'm not actually in the ring putting my body on the line, you never really feel a part of the show. And a personal note, this past Christmas, Tim walked up to me and gave me a Christmas card. And I thought, wow, that's odd. And when I opened it up and I read the words inside it, to be accepted by someone that's on the national stage and considered a peer really meant a lot.
He's always a guy who I've liked and respected in the ring, and his promo work is just second to none. More than that, though, he's a friend of mine, and he's been a friend of mine for almost just as long. He's a guy who I go to whenever I get a chance. I want to spend time with him.
I look at professional wrestling as an escapism for me. I see it as a way to, I put my entire life into this sport. I've dumped girlfriends. I've had girlfriends dump me. I never went to college and finished up a degree. So I have a lot of rolling the dice in my personal life. And no matter what's going on, bill, relationship-wise, whatever the case may be, professional wrestling is my escapism. When I'm in that ring, all I'm thinking about is the performance and the art of professional wrestling. It's an adrenaline rush. And I love it with all my heart.
He's probably one of the hardest working guys that we've ever booked in this company. He just gets it. He gets everything about pro wrestling.
But besides just having a passion, you could tell he really respected the business. And what you would see from him is he was like a sponge wherever he went. He was trying to soak up wrestling knowledge. He wanted to talk to guys. He wanted to ask questions. You could tell he really wanted to learn. And the combination of the passion, the respect, the desire to learn, that stands out. That makes a guy memorable. So I didn't forget the guy from the day that I met him, and I really had this newfound respect for him. And I had the pleasure of stepping in the ring with Tim, and even though I was a 6 or 7 years a veteran of him, I let him carry me in that match, man. He is a heck of a wrestler. And I just felt incredibly blessed to be able to step in the ring with him, and just to kind of show you the character of Tim Donst. And I think he kind of busted my balls about this. One time around Christmas, we were having a show, and he actually gave me a handwritten Christmas card thanking me for everything that I've done for him and everything that I invested in him. And just kind of those little gestures really show the true character of Tim.
As the years kind of went on, and I got to see firsthand and kind of like watch as Mike became the wrestler that you people know today and have seen over the last year, 2 years, whatever that might be. And I was kind of there for it firsthand as he worked out who he was as a performer, but also who he was as a person. And he is one of the more generous people that I've ever known in my entire life.
It was a week before I was going to debut in the ECW arena for a promotion called CZW. I was going to defend my AIW championship the day before here in Cleveland. And unfortunately, I pissed a bunch of blood, and I found out that I had a tumor inside my kidney, and I wouldn't be competing that weekend, or possibly any other weekend in the future, unfortunately.
I'll never forget where I was when I heard what was going on. I was actually with my son at Toys R Us, and I'd actually heard from Donst as I'd gotten some, people were saying like, oh, he had some weird tweets last night, and I'd sent him a text message, and he finally got back in touch with me, and he told me he was in the hospital, and that, he had blood in his urine. And I'm not a doctor, that's very serious.
When he had called me that night to let me know what was going on with him, I was speechless.
The first time I heard about his situation, I really didn't know what to think about it. It's kind of weird. You always hear about this stuff happening to other people, but when you think it's one of your friends, you're like, this can't be real. I mean, somebody's got to be ribbing me.
Hearing about what's going on with him, it's the worst. It absolutely breaks my heart that we may never get that singles match. Sounds selfish. That I may never get to watch him in the ring again. Honestly, breaks my heart. And but his health is way more important than that to me.
To have your kidney basically go into failure was the worst feeling my entire life. Felt like I was getting stabbed in the back over and over again. The painkillers didn't do anything to me. I was rocking my bed. They had to send several nurses in to restrain me. And I'm a guy with high pain tolerance. I'm used to getting dropped to my head for a living. It was the worst pain of my life until the next morning when that doctor told me I'd never step foot into a professional wrestling ring again. That was more heartbreaking, and believe it or not, those words hurt more than any tumor could.
And then to find out everything that's going on with Tim, Tim is a man's man. And I pray nightly for Tim. I know Tim is a fighter, and I know he can beat this. And when Tim announced his retirement, I got to spend a very special, emotional moment in the ring with Tim. And I'm not going to say what I told Tim, but it's a message just for Tim and Tim alone.
Pro wrestling is a weird fraternity. I think some guys don't know what to say, and I don't blame them for it because I wouldn't know what to say. The roles were reversed. Other guys that I didn't think would even know who I am really stepped up to me. Like guys like Paul London, a guy I've only met a few times, WWE superstar, as the famous Mick Foley as well. Guys that I idolized growing up reached out to me and took me under their wing, and it kind of made me realize, another layer of why I love this wrestling is because we're all family.
As a professional wrestler, you have another man's safety, health, and life in your hands. And I think when you have that kind of camaraderie, a bond is formed. And I really feel like wrestling is a family, a dysfunctional family, but a family. And when we heard the news that Tim, had to have this battle with cancer and the surgery that he has to undergo, it was heartbreaking. But at the same time, I know Tim's a fighter. I've been in the ring with him.
As things got worse, he was in the hospital, I think, for something for 4 or 5 days, and every day I made sure he texted me. I made sure to hear from him. I made sure to let him know that people were thinking about him, and people definitely were, and people continue to be thinking about him all the time. And as of the recording of this, he was supposed to be in this car ride with us, and he's actually doing something to, help raise funds and raise awareness and kind of just support what he's doing. And I think he goes under the knife for the surgery, and he's gotten about 4 different opinions from 4 different doctors who have told him everything from we can get this out and you're going to be fine to you'll never wrestle again. And I don't like that second answer. I like the answer of having Mike back in the car with me for that 6-hour trip from Pennsylvania to Ohio, everywhere he goes.
The idea was they wouldn't know until they opened me up whether or not the tumor was confined to my kidney. Luckily, it looks like it was. They removed my kidney and it looked to be cancer-free, but it's still kind of alarming that at 27 years old I had this cancer that's usually reserved for people over the age of 50, which means it's probably genetic, which is kind of scary. So right now there's just a lot of tests and everything else to make sure that hopefully it won't come back.
I really, really, really hope for the sake of him, for the sake of professional wrestling, that he's not finished wrestling, because he has so much to offer. And it's probably the most unfortunate situation that I, as a promoter, booker, whatever you want to call me, have had to deal with, because Tim Donst has been such a cornerstone of this company. So it sucks.
By all accounts, originally they thought that the cancer had spread through my bladder, which put me in stage 4, which means I probably wouldn't have a long time to walk this earth. And the thought of death never crossed my mind once. All I could think about was not stepping into that ring again. So I think that's perhaps a part of my escapism once again. The idea that I was concerned, about me being around a year from now, I was concerned about me being around next week, so I can try to have another good match. When I found out the cancer had spread, I was obviously relieved. The other thought process is that my organs are so damaged right now, my abdominal lining, that the idea that I'd get a hernia is a really high risk currently in my condition. So that means no gym, which kills me, and obviously no wrestling, which kills me even more. But by all accounts, I think I lucked out, and I think God was on my side, and more importantly, all the fans and everyone else, because I never felt like I was in this battle alone, which I should be. I really lucked out in the sense where all the tweets, Facebook messages, texts from all our friends, people got behind me, and I smoothed through this thing because of their support. I couldn't have done this on my own. And it's just another example of why wrestling saved me. Danny Havoc, who's a hardcore wrestler, he gets hit with light tubes, barbed wire, loves heavy metal, punk music that I'm not so into. And in high school, we wouldn't talk to each other. But here, because of this weird bond, professional wrestling, he's one of my best friends. And Danny's not a unique case. There's people all around the country, all around the world that I see 2 times a year, and yet every time I see them, it feels like they're my best friend. And that's the kind of closeness that's only built on the trust we have as professional wrestlers, because every time we step into that ring, it's a dangerous, dangerous game. Every match could be our last, obviously. So the idea that we trust each other to carry us into safety kind of bonds us and puts us together unlike any other sport or group in the world. Can't imagine my life without wrestling. I've been doing commentary until I get the okay to wrestle again, which might not be the case, but honestly I wouldn't do commentary because I hate being so close to a wrestling ring, not being an active competitor, because I feel like I'm letting the fans out a bit, I'm letting myself down because I can't contribute as much as I'd like to. You have guys tweeting me pictures of them doing my BDK pose while I'm sitting in the hospital bed hooked up to morphine on a liquid diet, and it's those kind of images, those kind of thoughts that make me want to come back. I've never been a guy who's had a huge ego, which is very tough in professional wrestling, because you have to be confident and you also can't be an asshole either. At least I choose not to be. And so you kind of have to play catch-22 with yourself. But I've wanted to return to professional wrestling this entire time, obviously, because it's my life. But having so many fans cheer for me, root for me, support me, now I feel like I owe it to them to come back, which puts me at another level of wanting to return. It makes my likelihood of stepping in that ring that much more, because I don't want to let the people down that were there for me.
The first time I ever saw Tim Donst wrestle was against Gavin Loudspeaker at Chikara. I didn't see him again until my first AIW show, which was Gauntlet for the Gold last year in 2014. As a lot of people know, he won that Gauntlet for the Gold and won a shot against Michael Elgin for the Absolute title at Absolution. I could tell, seeing him at Chikara and seeing him for the first time at Gauntlet for the Gold last year in AIW, that he was the hardest worker in the building, and he had heart, passion, and he bled and he sweat for AIW and professional wrestling. Donst, you are wrestling.
The first time I seen Tim Donst was at an AIW show. He had just his presence. You could tell when he wrestled that he wrestled with heart. And meeting him, he treated you like a best friend from the first time you meet him. And just every time I see him, he just wows you. He has that wow factor. And, he's wrestling. Donst is wrestling.
Tim Donst is so passionate about wrestling. Like, one time I saw him wrestling, he was like absolutely sick. He went through the matches, and after the matches, he ended up puking in a bucket. And he had a fever of, I don't remember how much, but it was a fever. And after the show and after the thing, I walked up to him and I said, "Hey Donst, that was a wonderful match." And he was telling me how sick he was and stuff, and I was just so impressed by him that he went through everything just to impress the fans and everybody. Thank you, Donst, for all you do.
So, the reason why Tim Donst is my favorite professional wrestler of all time is it's really a combination of 3 factors. The first factor is that I find his character absolutely fascinating. It's dark, but at the same time incredibly relatable. I absolutely love his wrestling abilities. He drops men on their heads. How much can you not love that? But the thing I think I most identify with Donst is his undying attitude, and how that's really it's really sung to me. No matter what, he never taps out. I've never seen the man tap out. I have never seen him say, "I quit." And that, to me, it hits me right here. His matches make me incredibly emotional, and sometimes I get headaches for screaming his name so many times. I've never had a wrestler, there's never been a wrestler that's actually been impactful on me enough to, I'm losing my words, you can't describe the man in just mere words. And that's why Tim fucking Donst is my favorite professional wrestler of all time.
One of the first AIW shows I saw, one of the matches had Tim Donst in it, and from the first moment I saw him, he instantly became one of my favorite wrestlers. As soon as I saw it and saw just how much he gave in that match and how intense he was, I instantly went home and I just YouTubed everything I could of Tim Donst. And I even showed my little brother him, and he is my little brother's favorite wrestler. And my little brother was very sad when he found out that Tim Donst had to retire.
Tim Donst, man, he is by far one of the best wrestlers today. He could do everything, strong style. He could even do the death matches. He's proved it here. He could do the mat wrestling. He could do everything. The dude's a hybrid. He's phenomenal. He's genuinely one of the nicest, coolest dudes I think I've ever met, and I've told him that, and that's not bullshitting. That's from the heart. He's one of my good friends. It sucks to see him not in the ring tonight, or any night for that matter, because of the whole cancer lung thing. I just hope he gets better and he comes back to the ring very, very soon. Love you, bro.
I've become a fan of Tim Donst around the Bacador times. Before he became a member truly of the Bruderschaft as Tim Donst. And when he came to AIW, I got to see probably one of the best mat technicians I've ever seen in my life. He's up there with a lot, and I mean a lot, of the greatest technicians, from Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. Those guys Tim Donst learned from, took it to another level. And I was there the night he puked in the bucket at AIW, and he had a fantastic match that night, like with the flu. How do you have that? Tim Donst is a man who not only can brutalize you in the ring, but also show great character outside of the ring. A great guy. And Tim, I hope you get well soon, my man.
I've been a fan of Tim Donst since I first started coming to the AIW shows in about the end of 2010, about the same time when he first kind of started in AIW. And I've been a fan of Tim Donst since about late in 2010 when I first started coming to AIW. I just always admired his ring work and how he went about wrestling in the ring. And meeting him as a person, he seems very genuine and a heck of a nice guy, always appreciative of the fans, and he's been appreciative of my efforts in supporting of him with, you know, streamers. I had a megaphone once with his picture on it. I've had numerous signs. So many different things. I had even this big Tim Donst hat I blew up in support of him, and with different quotes that I held up. And he's just a heck of a nice guy. It's a shame what's, you know, happened with him and his career as of late. And I really hope he has a full recovery and that we possibly one day, God willing, see him back in the ring.
Tim Donst is one of our favorite wrestlers here on the AIW roster, and more so not just his character, but also just like Tim Donst, the person. Very genuine, nice guy, appreciates the effort and the energy the fans exert during shows, and I want to show you this. This is a Tim Donst watch. He made a couple of these, passed them out to some of his favorite fans, and I mean, how many wrestlers actually do that? So very appreciative. Christmas gift for a couple of his fans. He gave this watch to me the night he laid down the AIW championship, so obviously he had a lot of emotion, and it's just a really nice, genuine thing to do, and I wish Tim Donst all the best in his recovery.
I think I was really starting to hit my stride before this injury, and hopefully, if I can come back, I can be a role model for people going through other struggles in their life, just like they were a model for me.
But Tim, I am praying for you, and I hope you beat this, and I know you'll beat this, and I cannot wait, and I hope it comes real soon before I hang up the microphone for good, that I get to announce Tim fucking Donst one more time.
You know, I've been talking to Tim on the phone frequently throughout this process, and just, you know, I keep telling him, like, you're going to wrestle again, you're going to wrestle again, and I really hope that he does. Yeah, it's really hard to have friends in this business, but Tim Donst is a guy that I truly consider a friend. I really don't know what else to say.
And I am confident that when this surgery is over, you're going to see Tim Donst in a professional wrestling ring again, and that's going to be a wonderful day.
You know, and he's somebody that I think a lot of people have really connected with over the last years, and I hope that you watching this at home, you know, reach out to him and let him know how he's kind of, affected you as both a wrestling fan and as a person. And like I said, I've known Mike for 10 years, and I've seen him grow as a competitor, as a professional wrestler over those 10 years, and as a person. And I hope there's many more of these years under his belt. He's still just a young man, like 26, 27 years old, and I know he's gonna get through this. I know this is gonna be just a speed bump in his career. And Mike, I texted you the other day, wish you well, and I'm sure everything is going great, and I'm gonna hear from you just a couple days from now that surgery was great, and you're gonna be back in the ring sooner than later, and I can't wait.
But he's a strong dude. He's gonna make it through it. Tim, you're the fucking man. You're Tim fucking Donst. You're gonna beat this shit, brother.
Love you, brother.
Every tweet, every Facebook message completely meant the world to me. Again, I wouldn't win this thing on my own, but this entire time I felt like I had a nice support system backing me up. I felt like I was in a handicap match with all of us against the cancer, not the other way around. Just know that this no longer is just about me. It's not about my ego wanting to return. Now I feel like I owe you guys a few more years in that ring. So that's a lot more powerful than any internal inertia. And I don't want to let you guys down. If there's any way I can wrestle again, I will for you.
I just want to take this moment to thank each and every one of you. Obviously, with my tumor on my kidney, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And all your tweets, messages, Facebook, everything. I can't tell you how many people came up to me and just asked how I was doing. And I just want to let you guys know that, thank you guys. What should have been the scariest moment of my life, and really put me in a downward spiral, never got that bad because I never felt like it was a one-on-one match with this me versus this tumor. I felt like it was me, my friends, my family, and most importantly, my fans. And I'm proud to say that we beat this fucking game. Sincerely. And then obviously the future comes up. Wrestling, you're like constantly thinking about the next step, the next thing, the next booking. You're always trying to make a name for yourself. And this whole experience really made me reflect on a lot. I'm a guy that's never happy with anything I've done. I'm very happy with what I do, but I just always think about the next level. And I'm happy to say I've come to the conclusion that if I had to hang on my boots forever, I've got to accomplish a lot of things in this business. I was in a little stable called the BDK. And C-Donst is not quite as popular.
I love C-Donst.
But somebody does. I won call-up for the gold twice. I think I won the AIW title twice. I won the most stacked Cybernetico of all time. And of course, that Young Lions Cup. And even just you really start to think and reflect. Even the kind of stupid stuff like the "Who's the Man" video. Yeah. Really holds in place. Who's the man? Tim Donst. It's one of my proudest moments to win this ring, and I know for a fact that I'm the fucking man here in AIW. That you guys are standing out at my first ever deathmatch. Right. I mean, my heroes like Alex Shelley tap out in this fucking ring. Yeah. I beat my trainer, Chris Hero, and threw up in a bucket in this ring. Well, maybe, Gage, maybe you should have let me finish my goddamn promo, because I'm not retired. I'm coming back.